Shalom and welcome to the Parasha experience. This Sunday we are going to continue the studies we have been doing during the sermon yesterday at Shabbat's morning sermon, speaking about the offering at the temple. And today we're going to speak about something very important for all of us, to be ready for Passover. The title of this study is Chametz about Passover, or the Tabernacle. So we're going to look at the real meaning of Chametz. We all know that the Torah tells us that on Passover, we must refrain from owning or eating Chametz, that is leavened yeast. But for some reason, in the Parasha Tzav we have been studying yesterday, we're told an additional wrinkle about Chametz. Parasha Tzav brings us a deeper knowledge of offerings, the tabernacle, the role of the priests, and we're given laws about Chametz. For some reason, the Torah prohibits us from bringing Chametz with offerings on the altar. And that's bizarre. Isn't Chametz about Passover? Well, apparently this isn't a law about Pesach or Passover. Chametz is always prohibited from being on the altar. What could Chametz possibly have to do with offerings then? Well, join us in this teaching as we dive deeper into the laws of Chametz and sacrifices, and in doing so, help us understand how we can possibly relate to the details of Mishkan offerings today. Shalom and welcome to Beit Shalom, Messianic congregation in Pozzuoli, Naples, Italy. Welcome at the Parasha experience of the Parasha Tzav. Parasha Tzav continues the theme of the book of Vayikra. We are given laws of the korbanot, the offerings. We're given laws about the roles of the priests in the Mishkan, the Tabernacle. Therefore, of course, it makes complete sense that one of things we're told about in this week's parasha is the prohibition of Chametz. But what is Chametz doing here? There is nothing about Chametz here. Chametz, the prohibition of leavened bread, is a Passover law, not a law about the offerings. That's taught in the book of Exodus, where we learn about the laws of Passover. No, brothers and sisters in Yeshua, it's true. This week's parasha reviews the laws of the Korban Mincha, the Mincha offering. We're told that the priests to take flour and oil and some frankincense for the scent and offer it to God, Hashem, our God, on the Mizbeach, the altar. But here is what's strange about this reading. We are also told mitzvot tichel, the mincha, should be eaten as matzot. Lo tafo chametz, don't bake the bread with chametz. Why would that be? And it's not just this verse. Earlier in Vayikra, in chapter 2, the prohibition of chametz is applied to any offering brought on the altar. Lo se chametz. And that's not all. If we go even further back, the roots of this prohibition extend even before there is any mention of a Mishkan at all, way back at Mount Sinai. Look at the law that God brings to the people in Exodus in chapter 23. Lo tzadech lechametz din tzadech. Don't offer the blood of a sacrifice to me with chametz. So the question is, why is Chametz forbidden? look at this. It seems like the prohibition on bringing chametz is critical to all offerings on the altar. And that's bizarre because we know that what chametz is about, right? Chametz is about Pesach, is about Passover, not the sacrifices brought any all day to the Mishkan. And indeed, some commentaries do argue this verse in Exodus is especially about not bringing chametz with Passover offering, presumably because the previous section of text had been talking about the biblical holidays, including Pesach, that is Passover. And that might make sense, right? On Pesach, Passover, you can eat chametz, you can own chametz, and of course, you cannot bring the Passover offering with chametz. But there are also several midrashim that actually agree with Peshat, that is a straightforward teaching, reading of the text, that this law not to bring offering with chametz refers to all offerings brought on the altar, not just the Passover offering. And Maimonides, the Rambam, also seems to read the same verse that way. So maybe we have to rethink our entire idea of what chametz really is. The question is, what is chametz really about? We had always thought that chametz is about the unleavened bread the Israelites had on their backs as they fled Egypt. But if that's the case, why does the Torah also tell us over and over that we shouldn't bring chametz with our offerings? Don't bring to them God on the altar? I'd like to offer a theory. My theory is that we'll actually find the answer to this question through the wider context of the verse just quoted in Exodus 23. You see, generally, when we are told not to bring chametz in offerings, it's told in the context of offerings, which makes sense. But Exodus 23 brings this law in the context of a few other laws. Maybe when we read these laws together, a pattern will begin to emerge, and that will shed light as to why Hashem, our God, doesn't want chametz offered up on the altar. So let's try to understand why chametz is forbidden with sacrifices. The verses begin with our law, Lo tzabech lechametz timsadeh. Don't offer the blood of a sacrifice to me with chametz. Then, velo lanu helavo chega devoker. Don't leave the leftover fats from my feast offering until the morning. Next, Reshit voveker v'maiti tov bet Hashem leach. Bring the first fruits that you grow to the house of Hashem, our God. And one more, don't cook a baby goat in its mother milk. So letov shel gad v'chalev mav. What a random smattering of laws. We recognize some of them. For example, don't cook a baby goat in its mother milk. Give your first fruit to Hashem, our God. But leftover fats, not sure what that is exactly. And don't offer sacrifices with chametz. Well, as we established already, we don't entirely get why this law even exists, let alone why it appears here. Why these other laws? So what does the law of chametz and sacrifices have to do with these laws about leftover fats, bikurim, and cooking a baby goat in its mother's milk? So here's what we're going to do. To try to understand the four seemingly disparate laws, we're going to slow down a bit and dive into each and every one of them. And so we do, I think we'll be able to build a theory that explains why they are all grouped together. And then hopefully we'll finally be able to answer our €1,000,000 question: why don't we bring Chametz onto the altar of Hashem, our God? So let's start with Bikurim, the law that teaches us when you finally arrive in the land of Israel, when the fruit and grain finally sprouts and the land yields its produce, as soon as that happens, do not pass go, do not collect euros 200, grab the first fruits instead and bring it straight to Hashem's, God's house. And the text tells us later in Deuteronomy, as you set the fruits down in front of Hashem's, God's altar, you also give a little speech. You say, Hashem, our God, my ancestor was a wandering Aramean, and he ended up in Egypt and became a great nation there, but then our people were enslaved. We cried out to Hashem, and Hashem, God, heard us and saved us and freed us from Egypt. And then Hashem brought us to this place and gave us his land, this land flowing with milk and honey. It's definitely a strange speech, don't you think? Why do we have to recount biblical history to Hashem, our God, when we bring Bikurim? I think Hashem, God, remembers what happened. But really, we are thinking about it's wrong. We're not recounting that history for Hashem. We are recounting it for us. You see, when we were back in the wilderness, Hashem was feeding us, giving us a shelter, leading us on a journey. We were so dependent on Hashem, so close with him, there was no possibility of distance between us. But then, after 40 years, we arrived in Israel. Now, we are living in homes that we built. We are living off of food that we have grown. I look around at my land, at my family, at the new wing I put into my house, and I feel strong. Look what I've accomplished. Look what I did. And yeah, you did do these things. It's fair, it's understandable to be proud. But you see, there is a real spiritual danger here in taking this idea a little bit too far, in thinking, I did this, me, by myself. The danger is I could forget that I didn't do this or these all things alone. So when the farmer grows his new fruit every year, and the first fruit and the first thing he does is run to give those fruits to Hashem, he makes a speech saying, I remember. I know I'm only here because you, Hashem, brought me here. You, Hashem, enabled all of this. The farmer is recognizing the truth. He didn't plant these fruits and grow these fruits because he's just an incredible farmer. He was able to do it because Hashem, our God, brought him to this place to make him able to do these things. Bikurim helps the farmer recognize and remind himself to feel that humility, to see that he is not the center of the world. So let's ask, is it possible that this same lesson maybe relates to the other 3 laws as well? Well, let's go next to the mitzvah not to cook a baby goat in its mother's milk. A mother uses her milk to feed her child, to provide life and nourishment for her child. when we take that milk and use it as just another ingredient in our recipe of cooking the baby goat, not only do we sever that connection between them, so we just disconnect them from each other, we do it barbarically. And as you know, in the Torah, when we speak about barbarian acts, we speak about Gentiles. So the way the Gentiles do things. And that's not the way Hashem wants us to do things. We are supposed to follow his commandments, his mitzvot. And his way of doing things are always the right ones. So we see both the baby goat and the milk from its mother as nothing but ingredients then for our own consumption, our own needs. That's not right. We know that this is not right. But when I take a step back, when I make the choice not to eat the baby goat with its mother's milk, I'm taking the active step. Well, I see you and I recognize your relationship. You are a mother who provides for her child, and your milk is not merely an ingredient. You, a baby goat, are not merely my lunch. You are a child. There is a humility there in recognizing that these animals are not merely for me. Again, I'm not the center of the world. So we're starting to see the theory more fleshed out. Let's keep going. Do we see this theme of humility continue in other two commandments? Well, let's look at Chametz, the laws, and humility. Let's look at the prohibition against leaving overfats on the altar. The Torah tells us when you're bringing an offering and it's supposed to burn for God all night on the altar. Don't stop the korban when it's not fully burned and just leave over the fats. It seems like we can see the theme continuing here as well. When we bring a korban, we're making a statement. Hashem, our God, here is an animal I raised and took care of and worked for. It's a product of my hard work, of my own hard work, and a staple of my livelihood. But I'm giving it to you because I know that what I have in my hands, even what I work for, truly comes from you. You are the giver of life, the true source of sustenance and livelihood. But if I truly believe it's all from Hashem, our God, and I want to show that, I don't stop in the middle. I don't leave anything behind, not even the last bits of fat. Neglecting to burn all of it, it's a kind of means, look, I showed my gratitude and then turned around and walked away. It's like bringing a fancy gift to someone as a sign of appreciation, but instead of handing it to them and telling them how much they mean to you, you leave it at the doorstep and walk away. This is that same spiritual danger. We're forgetting that these offerings, they're not just ingredients I threw together, dump on the altar, and finish up when it works for me. These fats, this offering, they're not just for us to do with them what's convenient. They are for Hashem. They are for Him. So we're sure about this point now. We have established that these three laws are about humility, about avoiding the spiritual danger of seeing everything around us as a mere ingredients for us, extensions of ourselves. And now we finally get to the Chametz. So the question is, how does this law about Chametz and the altar fit with this theme? Well, what is Chametz really? And for that matter, what is matzah? So let's look at the meaning of Chametz. Matzah is the simplest bread you can imagine. You take natural ingredients, flour made with wheat, combined with water or oil, and you bake it quickly, simply. But Chametz is more complicated than that. We take the wheat and we process it with yeast. Yes, the yeast is natural, it's true, but in the time of offerings, they were going to the grocery store and buying it, maybe online on Amazon. They were actively growing the yeast themselves, day after day, feeding it, taking care of it. And after weeks of cultivating yeast, once it was finally ready, baking the actual bread is a whole other story. My husband bakes sourdough, so I've seen how slow and painstaking this process is. It takes hours, even days, to form a single loaf, mixing the dough, letting it rise, working it, proofing it, letting it rise again. And when it's done, what is created never ceases to blow me away. It always comes different. Somehow, by literally getting hands dirty, working together flour, water, and yeast that he grew himself, he fundamentally alters the bread, makes it a product that is more innovative for sure, sophisticated, processed, and more human. It's completely different than the simple matzah. When I make matzah, there is no question. Of course, this is from Hashem. There is no great human ingenuity here, no huge technological achievement. Just throw together the ingredients and cook it in the fire. But with bread, after I put so much of myself into it, after I cultivated the yeast and spent hours, days, weeks creating this bread, I can forget about God's involvement. I can easily think, I did this. This was all me, by myself. So when Hashem, our God, tells us no chametz on the altar, Hashem, God, is saying, when you bring a sacrifice to me, be aware of that spiritual danger, chametz, that human creation, that innovation is not inherently bad, but that's not what happens here in the Mishkan. In Hashem, in God's home, we are very careful about the danger of reminding ourselves, I didn't do this alone. I find it very interesting that all four of these laws, they're all about food, all about consumption. And I think there is a reason for this. Eating, we all know, is one of the most dominant acts that we do on a daily basis. When I eat, I exercise mastery over each thing on my plate. It's mine. And so when it comes to the food we eat, and the food that we give to Hashem, our God, it's so easy to forget that this world is not mine. That Hashem, our God, created and enabled us and enabled everything that we have in this precise moment. So let's look at the chametz and consumption. Through these four laws, the Torah seems to be teaching us how to consume. Consumption isn't bad, We all know we are allowed to eat meat. We are allowed to eat chametz, but there is a right and a wrong way. We have to do it humbly. We have to be careful and conscious and not think of ourselves as the master of that which we consume. You may be so proud of what you've done. You've grown up, you've grown crops, for example, you've made a more sophisticated bread, There is a danger in seeing everything around us as an ingredient for us. Danger in seeing ourselves as the center of it all. So when we bring bread on God's altar, we leave the chametz behind. That noble sign of human ingenuity, and achievement, we check it at the door. So it has to be at our door. And as door, we mean also our doors, the doors we hear from, the doors we speak from, the door we can smell from, the doors we can see from. Yes, these are all doors. We have to check our doors during these days before Pesach, before our Passover. So in Hashem, in God's house, we bring our offerings with humility. We recognize that what we have, even what we have made, does not begin and end with us. Only then can we recognize our Creator and really connect with Hashem, our God. So brothers and sisters in Yeshua, Messianic Jews, Messianic believers, and Gentiles of all denominations, I want to invite you to examine our hearts in these preparatory days before Pesach, before Passover, and to discover in us which is or false doctrine, false teaching is still hidden in our hearts. What idolatry, hypocrisy must come out of our mishkans, our hearts, to make room for His Torah of truth, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, who is to come. We always remember Yeshua's word when he says, beware of Pharisees' leaven. And we'll also give you some biblical references to read and to meditate upon. We begin to clean up the threshing floor with Yeshua, to sweep away Satan's lies in our lives, from families, congregations, to invite the groom in our lives, congregations, houses, communities, lands, nations. When Yeshua returns, he will clean up everything that does not belong to him. Then it will only be pain and tears. So let's prepare ourselves. Let's watch, fast from years to welcome the hidden afikoman, our hidden manna, our Yeshua HaMashiach, our Jesus the Messiah, on our table during Pesach, Passover, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. So we welcome all of your comments and feedback. We are really happy to receive all of your comments and feedback. Please be kind with us, ask questions. We will certainly not allow any discriminatory language, personal attacks, promotion, and spam. That will be removed from our posts on the social medias and the website and all of our channels, as well as our personal profiles on the social medias. So shalom to all of you, and we'll see each other soon. This week we'll have a teaching on a Monday in the evening at 8 o'clock Italian time. as a part of Bo Yeshua Bo community project that I'm inviting also to be part of in a very active way. So if you have something you want to share, your testimony of faith, you are welcome to contact us via email or through our contact panel on our website. And also, we will have a special Pesach evening teaching that will be streaming at 8 o'clock, always Italian times in the evening. And you're all welcome to participate with your family from your house. And you're all welcome to also share the good news to your with your friends, with your community, with your network, with everybody on the planet. We are praying for the restoration of Israel, the salvation of the people of Israel, and also for the healing and deliverance of Israel and the nations from this coronavirus, but also from any spirit of false idolatry, false teaching, and all of the spirits we have been mentioning during this teaching. So shalom to you, and see you soon.